Good evening and welcome to the Moscow Board of Adjustments meeting for Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. The first order of business is approval of minutes from March 4th, which was a very short meeting. Does anybody have any comments or scribners, or do I hear a motion to approve?
I so move to approve the minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none?
Abstention?
Oh, yeah, I forgot you were on.
Neither Marshall nor I were
There we go,
here,
and
so.
2 abstentions, so the motion passes. All right, that gets us to the reason we're here tonight.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So tonight we have a public hearing for a conditional use permit application for Moscow Charter School, which is currently addressed 1723, 1733, and 1753 East F Street. The proposal is to construct a new 7,860 square foot middle school on the existing campus. The project includes the demo of the existing structure, removal of the portable building, and the reconfiguration of fire lanes, parking lots, and pathways. So this is kind of hard to see from here, but this is the complete site plan. And this is the proposed building here in the center. This building is existing and it will stay. And then you can see the driveway here. Traffic will enter this way, circulate throughout the site here, and exit this way. And around the back is a fire lane, just for some context. So the subject property is located right around the corner of Mountain View Road and East F Street. You can see that Hamilton Indoor Rec Center is just to the north and Moscow Middle School is to the west. Primarily, it's residential besides those two uses around. You can see that the property right to the east is currently undeveloped. This did recently undergo a lot division, so these are slated for development, residential properties in the future. And to the west are also, and south are also all residential. And the site is also accessed from East F Street. So the subject property consists of 2 separate lots. The smaller lot is 11,635 square feet, and the larger one is 68,575 square feet. So upon development, these 2 lots will be combined into one that totals just over 80,000 square feet. Subject property is zoned R3. You can see that properties to the east and west are also zoned R3, which is a residential zoning district. And primarily, it's also residential around. There's R2 zoning district, which is here in the green around, aside from the Hamilton Rec Center up here to the north, which is farm ranch zone. So within this zoning district, which is medium density residential, educational services or the expansion of such uses are required to obtain a conditional use permit within this district. So just for some background, because this is not the first CUP that this has received, back in February 2000, the Board of Adjustment approved a conditional use permit for the school and Turning Point Daycare to operate on the property. And this CUP included the construction of around 8,000 square foot facility for Moscow Charter School, as well as the remodel of an existing house for the daycare to go into, and parking lot improvements and landscaping as well. And then fast forward to 2014, there was another CUP for Moscow Charter School to add a new 2-classroom portable as well as a paved pathway. So going back to 2000, along with this CUP, there was also a landscape buffer that was included in this. So essentially what happened was normally the school would have been required to install a type A landscape buffer along the eastern, western, and southern property lines. However, due to financial constraints at the time, they instead opted to do a buffer only around the main playground area at the south end, and then a 3-foot landscape buffer on the remaining perimeter of the property. So normally, if this were to happen today, we would ask it to go through a variance process, but at the time, that's what staff decided. So, and this was approved along with the conditional use permit in 2000. So now, fast forward to this CUP, a type A landscape buffer is required along the eastern edge of the property because that will be impacted by development. The western side will not be impacted by development, so we're not asking them to bring that up to code by installing a type A landscape buffer. And as normal with any site that has a parking lot, we will ask them to install a parking lot landscape buffer of 3 feet. So I'll show you here the parking lot, and additionally, there are special uses because this is an educational facility, so there are special requirements for loading spaces. The requirement is that they must provide at least 2 pickup and drop-off spaces, and that the spaces must ensure that there are no backing movements for vehicles for safety of the students. So as you can see here in red, there are 3 pickup and drop-off spaces, and the green arrow shows the circulation of traffic entering and exiting the site. So there will also be no backing movement, so it meets both of those requirements. When it comes to parking, there are also specific requirements for parking for educational uses for elementary and middle schools. We require 2 spaces per classroom and 1 space for every 8 seats in the largest assembly area. In this case, there is no assembly area. We're only dealing with classrooms. So in that back building that's existing, there are 8 classrooms, and in the proposed building, there are 5. And that leads to a total of 26 required parking spaces. They provided 29 in their plans, so they do meet this as well. And as part of those 29 parking spaces, 2 are ADA. So this is just a closer-up view of the parking lot. It's a little bit easier to see than the previous site plan. And as you can see, the parking lines, the center here and the edge down here, and the handicap parking spaces are up front, with a pathway cutting through the site up to the entrance. And here are just some elevation drawings so you can get an idea of what this proposed building will look like from different perspectives. And there's also a few renders I'll show you here. Inside the building, in classrooms. And so staff recommends approval of the proposed conditional use permit at 1723, 1733, and 1753 East F Street for the expansion of the charter school with no conditions, and board shall direct staff to prepare relevant criteria and standards to be reviewed in an upcoming meeting. So I'll put up the relevant criteria and standards for you and take any questions you might have.
I have one, and I wasn't on the board back in 2000, so I'm not sure what drove the landscape buffer variances. As I understand it, we're taking a building out of the middle of the lot and a house out of the middle of the front of the lot and combining a lot and then creating a pathway all the way around it.
Essentially, here.
And then building another relatively symmetrical building in the center of the lot. So how does the city justify that one side of the lot is not being impacted and the other side is when everything's happening symmetrically in the center?
Let me go back to the site plan here. So I believe that was justified because the parking lot, or excuse me, the entrance over here is existing, and it would only be the eastern side of the lot that's being reconfigured and the parking is being added in. So it was staff's decision to make that call and just say that the eastern side would need to be, the landscape buffer would need to be added in. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, mine were kind of along the same line as Joe's. They're both in the same zoning district, and so therefore, typically buffering within the same zone, buffering isn't required. So did that come into play when they had a reduction there?
Well, so this is a little bit different of a case because it's an educational use, or we call it institutional use in the code. And so that does require a type A landscape buffer when it abuts a residential zone. So that's why normally we would have required a type A landscape buffer around the whole thing.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Leah.
All right, thank you.
This time I'll open it up to the general public. The applicant, care to come up and talk about this project? Or the applicant's representative, or? Fair enough.
My name's Tony Bonicelli. I'm the administrator, of the Moscow Charter School. This is a project we've been looking to be doing for the last, I've been there 6 years now. The first was to start off with portable to be able to expand our middle school. We've been able to do fairly well with that, and now we want to be able to offer a very nice facility that is going to be of good use for our students and also for the community. We do offer, with use of the HERC, the Parks and Rec Department gets to use our facility in the summer for programs. They've done different coding and robotics programs and things like that. And so this is going to actually feature a science lab. It's going to be 5 classrooms. Science lab is the main portion that we're really looking to be able to get our students to go forward. We're a STEAM school, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math is our main focus. And so this building will fulfill what we're looking for. We have 198 student capacity. We don't look at going anywhere over that. That's kind of what makes our school unique, is there's only 22 kids per class, 1 class per grade level. And this expansion we felt is going to be the best fit for our students and staff. So, you guys have any specific questions? Yes.
What grades are going to be located in the new versus the older
The new
structure?
building will hold 5 through 8.
Okay. So it is going to, that's going to be a middle school alternative for the kids in Moscow.
Right. And it's also a cool thing is we still do life skills. So we teach kids how to cook, sew, manage checkbooks, things like that. So one of the classrooms actually is going to have a kitchen in it, but it'll also be a makeshift art room for middle school, but it'll also be a multi-use for all grade levels. So we can have kids, K through 8 going in and learning how to bake cookies or do certain things that you wouldn't typically get because of that facility. Plus, it'll have concrete floors, so it'll be easy to clean up after you get the kindergartners in there. My son's going to be one next year, so gotta be a little worried about that. Yes.
What was the purpose of the building that you're demolishing?
That was the house. That was the one that was the daycare.
Oh, okay.
And so that is our English language arts classroom, and also houses the kitchen for our life skills and our counseling center.
That's part of the house that's being demolished?
That is what's being demolished, is it?
So how, you're gonna miss all that while this project's being built then?
So
You're gonna-
with what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep the house and the portable until the existing building is up.
Oh, okay. So in other words, the new project doesn't require the other one to be demolished
Correct,
first? I got it.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already talked to the fire department. They want the house, so they're pretty excited about it, actually.
Oh, yeah.
In town training.
Bring it down. Any other questions for the applicant?
Well, I guess that leads to another question then. If you're going to leave those buildings intact, the drop-off area and the
Yes.
traffic flow is going to continue?
So I can explain exactly how that works too. Is there a way to go up to the actual graphic? Because it'd be easier to show you guys. So I've talked with the HERC. I've also talked to Superintendent Bailey, because the middle school is there. No, the one that's the above one that shows the HERC. That one works. Okay. So one of the main things is trying to get students to walk or ride to school. And so we will be putting we already have a crossing guard out at the corner at F and Mountain View every day in the morning or in the afternoon. We will add someone in the morning so that parents will encourage their students to walk, and also find alternative drop-off areas so that will also relieve traffic in that area. So what we're going to do, though, for drop-off is is there a laser? Or-
So it's that top one.
Okay. So, fun. All right, so you'll go up and come out this way to drop off. And then that will be staffed to get people that I'll be sending out a bunch of email and correspondence and stuff like that to get people knowing a couple weeks before. And then when we actually go to do the real drop off, I'll actually have people out there invest in stuff to show them how this is going to come around. Kids will get dropped off at right along that side, and then we have a crosswalk right there. So then we'll have a crossing guard that will cross them. They'll take the sidewalk up to the main buildings or whichever building they're going to be part of, and then the parents will exit and come out this way. So heading towards the Moscow Middle School. Busing will do a complete opposite. They'll have basically the right of way, and so they always come through and drop off and pick up right here, and so that will be completely open for busing, so that we don't have any traffic backups in that area. So that's and so I've talked to Dwight, and he's good with everything with that. And also our parking spaces, he's agreed to let us use this area during school hours. We won't be using the garden area, though, because those are rented out. So I'll be doing lots of trips over there to teach people how to do it as we get going.
This traffic flow, is that going to continue even after the other buildings are taken down and you just have?
It's going to be, so we have a bottleneck parking lot right here. So you come in here, you come around and back out, and it clogs everything up. With a new parking lot, people, oh, wow, it kind of went somewhere. I can figure this out. I'm a technology, I got it right there. Okay. So, there we go. All right. So with a new parking lot, you now come in here, come through, and then exit, and they'll be able to exit out onto F Street, where it won't cause that backup, because what happens right now is there's a line that will form, and it's hard for cars to be taking a left out and cars coming in to pick up. And so that'll allow everyone to kind of go and make a full U out of there, easing congestion on F Street for our neighbors.
Okay, so at that time, you really won't be using the Herc area?
Yeah, once those buildings are out and that parking lot's in, we won't be using the Herc at all anymore.
Do you have a project schedule yet? Do you know how long you'll have that overlap of?
So we're looking at breaking ground within the next few weeks once we get everything permitted. We just went out to bid, and that closed yesterday. And then we hopefully, like within the next 3 to 4 weeks, so we'll have a portion during the end of the school year, and then coming back in, we're hoping to have everything completed, you think, by October? So it shouldn't have a huge impact on, unless we get weather, and we know what that's like living here. But that's the projected. Once we can get going, we're going to be able to get going. We have everything in place to do that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah.
Would anybody else care to come up and speak in favor of this application? You don't have to, but you're welcome to. But it looks like all 4 of you together. So I would suspect there's no one to speak against or. Fair enough. Well, then, with that, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for the board. Marshall.
I think it's a very straightforward project. I think the new design is much better than what they're working with now. With that, I would move approval of the conditional use permit without conditions, and direct staff to bring forward proposed relevant criteria and reason statements.
And I will second that.
All right, before we have a vote, does anybody like to make any other comments other than we just vote?
Well, I did have a comment.
Fair
In the recommendations by the city here, it talked about there will also be a requirement for 3-foot landscape buffer with 1 tree every 40 linear feet and 1 shrub every 6 feet on the outer edge of the parking lot to the north and east of the proposed parking lot. On the drawing up there, they have it on the north side, but they don't have it on the east side where we have R3 along with the parking lot is there. And it's not in the drawing, but is that, because of city code, is that?
I'm assuming that would be part of the requirements during the permitting process.
Permitting process, yeah.
Okay. So,
But if they've already gone out to bid, they're past the permitting process.
Yeah, this has been approved by planners in our office.
If they're with or without the buffer.
With the buffer, and what we determined is that because of restrictions to size of the property, the section where it buffers the parking lot, so along, we're looking at the bottom of the screen here, all the way along the fire lane, we would just ask them to combine what would be the 3-foot and the 10-foot landscape buffer into a 10-foot landscape buffer, and then just with all the plantings that would be normally required for both in there. So it would just be essentially a denser landscape buffer than normal.
So then would it be safe to say that that part of this falls under criteria 6, where the proposed use meets all applicable developmental standards of the zoning code?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none? We are approved. We're done. There we go.
Yeah, you're here for all of them.
The next one. Come to the next one. You might not think that.
I like the meetings where
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Good luck. Welcome.
Come visit our school anytime.
Sure.
All right, the next item is, actually, wait a minute.
We need to figure out a time to.
Yeah, we need to
Approval time.
Approve the.
Minutes.
the minutes.
We did approve the minutes. What do we? Oh,
Works somewhat best for us and also
I would suggest Wednesday.
Wednesday. So
Wednesday the 1st?
That'd be the first. Yeah, I have nothing that day.
That works for me.
Well, nothing in the evening. That's,
I cannot be there, but it sounds like a lot of you can.
which date? I'm sorry, I just grabbed my,
Wednesday, May 1st.
no problem.
and is that in this room? Okay.
5:30.
Say 5:30, Leah?
Okay.
right here in this room.
Okay. Any other board communication?
No, not from us.
Okay. Other business, I have a question under other business, because I know what our next meeting is. Are we having more than just the ice rink that night, or are there multiple things? Has that been determined?
Just the ice rink, but it's going to be the CUP and the variance.
Okay.
2 items.
So I know I can't ask questions that no one else can hear, so I'm going to ask the questions now. Just because if that meeting goes sideways and goes back to the city council for any unknown reason, I'd like to make sure we know as much about it as possible. So history is important.
Yes.
The other thing I'd like to know and have made clear during that meeting is there's a lot of bureaucracies involved, and I'm not so sure that the applicant is one of those, because I think Rotary Club is the applicant, but the fairgrounds is the owner, and the fair board runs it, if I understand that right. And so, I guess, when it comes down to us making decisions based on the conditional uses and the variances, we're subject to those criteria. But I'm not so sure that an applicant can make the change to the property. And so,
If needed.
if needed, or if the property owner will let the applicant or the renter do that. So does that make sense? Like, I don't want to deny someone or approve someone for something they can or can't do because the owner of the property or the manager of the property wouldn't allow them to do it or not to do it. And so that's what I'd like to have made clear. And it's
Okay.
been very unclear all the other times. And we've tried to justify it because clearly it's to the benefit of the community. No one argues that, and it's there, so now it's an existing condition. But we're always trying to justify something. And I don't want to be in that boat this time.
And you say the Rotary is the applicant?
Isn't it the Rotary Club that's the
That's
applicant?
Steve will know.
Okay, so let me explain what we got. So Rotary started it, and Rotary walked away from, no, we shouldn't walk away from, they turned it over to the Palouse Ice Rink
Okay.
Association Board. So now it's an association of a nonprofit a 501c3 organization that operates the ice rink. And they will be making the application, really. The Rotary Club is out of it.
Okay.
But it's a 501c3 organization that works with the Fair Board, the county, and basically the city to operate the rink.
Okay. So that's 4 different entities that all have to be on the same page. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, who are we approving or denying, or who is responsible for accommodating any conditions if some are
It
required?
basically falls back to the Latah County Commissioners. The Fair Board is like, we are a board of the city, okay?
Right.
They are a board of the county, okay? And the county commissioners have the ultimate say of what goes on there at the fairgrounds. They make recommendations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Normally, the property owner has to sign these applications, and we didn't push that for whatever reason the last couple times this has come through. So are you saying that some kind of letter or something maybe from the county commissioners would suffice for you to, I mean, everybody knows what the ice rink has been wanting to do forever, so are you looking for
True.
approval from
Okay,
the
let me-
commissioners that they
Here's
can
my
do
more,
whatever
here's my
they
more
want?
blunt statement. It requires a conditional use and it requires a variance. It is harder for us to approve variances. So something that all of us up here would like to approve, we have to come up with excuses each time to try to make it work. When the reality is, it should get denied and repealed or back to the council
Joe,
for
I
the
hate to stop
council.
you, but I think we're
We're
stepping
jumping the
into
gun.
we're
I get
stepping
that.
into some territory that we shouldn't be stepping into.
Well,
You can ask staff for any information, but we shouldn't be making those kinds of justifications or statements.
I'm not trying to make a justification or a statement, but I will not be forced into a position where I'm required to try to break the city's own rules. So I want the city to determine who needs to sign that application this time, and I want them to be very clear who's responsible for following up with it. Because I don't want to be the bad guy if we deny it, the use or the variance. I'm not saying, we always try to approve everything. So I'm just trying to say, I want the city, of those 4 uses, someone's got to take charge. And that's all I'm asking, is to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row this time, pending an outcome either way.
Okay. One thing that I'm not going to be able to be there, but I would suggest, since there is lead time, to kick this over to the city attorney's office, because what I would like to see is an opinion of council and possibly an opinion also of the county prosecutor's office that, stating who has the standing to bring this issue before the Board of Adjustment and who has the standing to sign off on the permitting, so that it does not become a quest, so that can be determined, so that it does not have to take up the meeting for exactly the reasons that Joe was talking about.
Because you were thinking that I was coming across in a negative way.
No,
and
I
I
wasn't.
was.
No,
But
no, I think
the flip
you're
side of
just-
that is, if we're trying to positively try to approve something again, when really we should say no because we're trying to make something up, I really would rather have somebody at a higher standing than us volunteers determine that this is viable and potentially even permanent after this time.
Doesn't somebody have to sign the application to bring those to us?
That's been done by the Palouse Ice Rink Association.
So I assume they'll do it again, I guess.
And they did.
Yeah, it's been,
Second for owner.
But they don't own the
Yeah,
land.
and, I would like to also, because I would like to see this rink happen and continue to be here, just to bulletproof the application as signed, that nobody can come back in the future and say, this was not a valid action because the signatory was the wrong signatory and they lacked standing to sign it.
Yeah, sure.
Ultimately, what I'm after is a little forethought so that it's a nice, smooth, relatively easy meeting.
And the good news is the city attorney came from the county prosecutor's office.
There you go. So probably familiar with what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Sorry to throw
But
that
that's a
kink out
reasonable
there.
approach to take. I mean, you're right, especially if there's so many players,
Yeah.
gosh. Are we still on TV here? Are we?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Oh,
We
okay.
are. If nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Have one? Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. We are done.
See you Wednesday.